Along the way. Hello and welcome to the regular business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, January 21st. Holland Squallen, Quist Tilktumuk, Tla Squamish Okmeo. As always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish's website following the meeting. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting. Council, we have an amended agenda before us. There's been an item added and an item removed. So can I have, we're looking to adopt the amended agenda, moved by Councillor French. Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Anderson. All in favor? Motion carries. And I'd just like to point out, we have two councillors participating remotely this evening. So we've got Councillor Stoner and Councillor Pettingill joining remotely. And Councillor Stoner.
Sorry, on the amended agenda, can you just clarify what's been added?
There's a motion regarding unrelated agenda items 9.1, which is cancellation of the February 4th regular.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll deal with that when we get there. Thank you. We don't have any delegations or invited presentations today. Is there any, so next item is unscheduled public attendance. This is where if anyone has a matter that is emergent in nature and needs to be addressed before the next council meeting, there'll be opportunity to bring it forward. Seeing none, we'll move along. We have no public hearings. We have a timed item today, which is section 57 notice for 38744 Britannia Avenue. And we'll let our staff get set up. And
good evening. My name is Andrea Stokes, License and Property Use Inspector with the District of Squamish. I also have here with me Senior Building Official Chad William. We are supporting each other with the Section 57 notice on title. I led the investigation and prepared the report, while Chad is our BC Building Code resource. We are bringing forward a recommendation to Council for the registration of notice on title, referred to as Section 57 of the Community Charter, on 38744 Britannia Avenue in Dentville, legally described as Lot H, Block 23, District Lot 759, Plan 22401. The summary of this file is that staff received a complaint in August of 2024 related to unpermitted construction of multiple suites on the ground floor. After a property inspection with myself and a building inspector, was identified that alterations had been made to the property, including 3 suites and a coin-operated laundry. District of Squamish building service records were checked, and there were no permits on file for any alterations on the ground floor. In 2008, a building permit had been taken out for a secondary suite on the main level of the dwelling. To date, building services has not received a complete building permit application to resolve the non-compliance. Can you forward the slide?
your arrow. Yeah, there you go.
So that's just on the slide, just what I've just recapped. Recommendations to Council. A motion put forward to instruct the corporate officer to place a bylaw and BC Building Code contravention notice on the land title to advise interested parties that there are outstanding interests on the property, as well as instruct the corporate officer in their discretion to seek injunctive relief if a complete building permit application is not received by July 21st, 2025. We're happy to take questions at this point.
Thank you very much. I just want to quickly run just a quick process for everybody in the room or observing. Council is going to ask, has opportunity to ask any clarifying questions, have some discussion now, and then the owner or representative has an opportunity to speak as well, which we'll get to next. So, Council, at this point, questions? I'll venture one of my own. I'm just I'm thinking about, unpermitted suites in general, and this is something that we know exists broadly across the community. We've been taking, I think it's not necessarily always enforced given the housing crisis and so on. So just in this case, what made this hit that threshold that it's appropriate to take this action on this matter when we know that there's likely other unpermitted suites, and how I know that, yeah, I know it's a complex issue and you can't speak to necessarily other properties, but just what boiled this one to the surface to take this, recommend taking this step at this time?
Through the chair, you're right, there may be other alterations on properties, but we look at it in a complaint-based process. And once we go down that process, then we need to investigate. And when we find 3 unpermitted suites with a coin-operated laundry, this is just part of the process. We're following that path towards compliance, and a building permit would be the first step towards compliance. I'll invite Chad to offer anything else if you'd like as well.
Through the chair, there's a certain amount of risk, obviously, in a structure without permits, and there's varying degrees of risk, obviously, from one enforcement file to another. There's definitely some concerns when there's 5 units that come to our attention within a single family home. So that's why we're here. But yeah, it does vary. I mean, our goal is not to pursue, people's housing. Obviously, that's not sort of the mission, but making sure that they're safe, that's certainly the mandate.
Okay, thank you. That's useful context. Councillor Penningill, go ahead.
Yeah, and I apologize. I seem to have lost my raise hand in the option in the system. So I'll have to do it the old fashioned way. But there was a mention of an application or something in 2008, but I take it that's just sort of context and not relevant to this, or can you explain the relevance of that 2008 permit or application?
Through the chair, the property owner had filed a complete building permit in 2008 for a secondary suite on the main dwelling. So that would be the main dwelling, the principal residence, and then the secondary suite on the main floor. This complaint that we're dealing with was 3 unpermitted suites on the ground floor. So there's a ground floor, a main floor, and an upper floor in this property.
Okay,
so the 2008 permit was for a secondary suite.
Okay, and is the implication that we, as part of this investigation, we looked at that and that's fine, or that's just context? We didn't investigate the status of that main floor construction.
Through the chair, that 2008 permit was approved and had gone through the permitting process, and that was with this original owner as well. So the context would be that they understand the building permit process.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just curious what responsibility or avenues we have to alert those who are living in the unpermitted suite. So this is obviously a public process, but our communication to date has been with the property owner. Do we have any responsibility to notify those who are living in the suites that they're unpermitted?
Through the chair, during the inspection, the tenants were present during the inspection. I don't know my limitations of what I can say about those tenants, but they were present during the inspection. And again, there's a balancing act of assessing life safety and unpermitted alterations.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks. I just want to be clear, make sure that I'm clear on what I believe is a salient point, that the ground floor is an uninhabitable space, as is reflected in the drawings that were approved for this secondary suite main floor building application, right? Those are labeled uninhabitable space, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
And just, I'm quite certain I know the reason, but what is the reason for that being uninhabitable space?
Through the chair, I'm going to let our building code resource.
Through the chair, the original construction of the home in 2006 had a flood hazard assessment done. And all living space had to be above 4 meters geodetic, which was essentially the ceiling of the ground floor or the floor of the main floor. So that nothing below that could be habitable. Yeah.
Okay, and with that in mind, we've heard that a building permit application and working towards compliance would be a possibility here, but building permit application, how would that affect the flood? Like it feels like just a non-starter, or is there a path? Is there a path there?
Through the chair, the flood hazard assessment that was done when the home was built originally was based on 1994 modeling or the Klein Leinoff report. So without going through the building permit process, we wouldn't know what the mapping looks like, whether or not it's feasible. But that would be sort of the path to follow in order to assess viability.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on this? We do have some we do have, I'm going to go to the representative. Is the owner or a representative of the owner in attendance that would like to speak to this matter? I'm not seeing anyone in chambers. I don't see anyone indicating that there is an online participant, so they're not here to do that. So, Council, do we have any more questions? Or we do have the staff recommendation here as well. Are you moving the staff recommendation? Councillor Hamilton moves the staff recommendation. I'll second that. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thanks very much for bringing this file. I think that it's critically important that we have building bylaws. They're there for our safety, and bylaws don't mean anything if we don't enforce them. I fully recognize that we can't enforce all bylaws all the time, and I think our complaints-based system, while maybe not ideal, it does function, and I think this is a case where, particularly packing many residents, many suites into an uninhabitable space for flood control reasons without sufficient egress is certainly elevates to the level of safety concern for me. So thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments here? Yep, go ahead, Councillor Stoner, then Greenlaw.
Yeah, thank you. I won't repeat what Councillor Hamilton said, but I agree with a lot of it. These are challenging files, but they're important to make sure that our community is safe and building is adhering to our bylaws. As we know, there are a number of unpermitted suites that do exist, but where there are complaints, we want to ensure that people are living in safe scenarios. I do hope that there's some opportunity for a path to compliance here, and I think that there's some leeway here for the owners with a July deadline to get into a building permit. So hopefully that is the best avenue forward, and we can maintain housing for the folks who are living there, but do so in a safe way. So happy to support the motion on the floor. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just speak in support of the motion on the floor. And thanks for all your work on this. Some of the past Section 57 complaints, I've had concerns around them being, modifications done by previous owners that the current owners may not have may have not had any idea that there were unpermitted modifications in their home. But in this case, however, it's pretty clear that they are familiar with the process that the district has, which is also a concern of mine. Sometimes people aren't aware of the process and kind of knowingly was contravening it. So yeah, so I'll be supporting the motion on the floor. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'm speaking in support of the motion. I think it's really important that even in the midst of a housing crisis, when there's a life safety is a major priority here. So we know that and like some of my colleagues have stated, this is something that the constraints of this site, in particular the ground floor issue, are known to the landowners. I also think that, and that's outside of, even if there wasn't that flood issue, there's a large number of potential issues, if not issues, that need to be properly accounted for as and permitted. So I'm happy to support this, and I do hope that there's a path through here for and mostly for the tenants. So, but so hopefully we can get to some form of compliance here, and if possible, make these suites habitable to the whatever the extent of our ability to do so. I'll call the question. All in favor? A motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So our next order of business is development permit DP 000621 for 1005 and 1009 Raven Drive. And I'll turn over to our staff when they're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Daly, planner with Community Development. I'm here tonight to present a development permit application at 1005 and 1009 Raven Drive. At the December 12th, 2023 special business meeting, Amendment Bylaw number 2893/2022 was adopted. This rezoned the subject property from Rural Residential 1 to Comprehensive Development Zone number 103 to facilitate the development of 35 townhomes. The subject property is located at 1005 and 1009 Raven Drive, immediately south of the intersection of Cardinal Drive and Raven Drive, and east of Kingfisher Road. Neighboring properties to the north and west are zoned Comprehensive Development Zone number 38 and are developed with single-unit dwellings. Properties to the south and east are zoned Rural Residential 1 and developed with single-unit dwellings. The subject properties are currently undeveloped, and 1009 Raven Drive is almost entirely constrained by a BC Hydro right-of-way. The green area on this slide shows the approximate location of the hydro right-of-way. This DP application seeks to establish the form and character of 35 townhouses. The proposal largely conforms to the CD 103 zone. Buildings are 11.3 meters in height, apart from Block 3, which is 10.68 meters in height, to provide a gradual transition between the 9-meter tall single-unit dwellings to the west. The reduced building height for Block 3 was secured through the rezoning application based on feedback provided by Council. Two of the townhome units will be secured as affordable rental housing in alignment with the District of Squamish perpetual affordable housing policy. This was also secured through the rezoning process. A variance to reduce the front setback for the second and third stories of the 2 blocks of buildings fronting Raven Drive from 6 meters to 5.09 meters is requested. The ground floor will still meet the required setback, and staff are supportive of the variance request as it will have minimal impact on adjacent properties. Parking meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing an additional 10 visitor parking stalls for the community garden and agricultural area. Bicycle parking is proposed in the garage of each unit. The garage door height is 2.25 meters, which is tall enough to accommodate a full-size pickup truck. A shared waste room is provided in a central location away from the neighboring residential properties. The shared waste room meets the district's solid waste storage technical design guidelines, and the location of the shared waste room is circled in red on this slide. 2,500 square meters of common agricultural space for the purpose of food production is proposed within the BC Hydro right-of-way. A playground with picnic tables and a gazebo is proposed adjacent to the agricultural area along Raven Drive. A public trail will provide access to both of these areas. An additional trail will provide a connection to the southern property line and an opportunity for a future trail connection to Finch Drive. The agricultural area and playground will be subdivided and dedicated to the district. A large stormwater detention pond is required south of the agricultural area. All of these areas are located within the hydro right-of-way. And the applicant has been working with BC Hydro since the rezoning application to confirm that these features can be constructed and maintained in the right-of-way area. Just for clarification, the stormwater detention pond would remain with the strata. The landscape plan respectfully interfaces with the rural edge of Squamish. A stand of willow trees anchors mowable pollinator meadow planting, guiding the public through the community amenities on the lot. A pocket park at the parcel frontage and adjacent to the trail connection creates a gathering space for all ages. Covered, accessible picnic tables provide refuse from the rain and heat. A playful climbable berm gives views across the agricultural dedication to the south. And the hydro seed mixes support increased habitat and forage resources for pollinators along the north and south stretch of the right-of-way. This development permit application was presented at the October 17th, 2024 ADP meeting. ADP reviewed the project and provided the recommendations shown on the slide. Staff believe the applicant's response and comments are sufficient and consistent with DPA 3 guidelines. To inform the community per policy, the project was posted to the district's development showcase and a development sign has been posted at the site. Variance notification was delivered to properties within 100 meters. One request for public information meeting was received. Given that the proposal meets all the DPA 3 guidelines, staff recommend approval of DP 621 and the requested variance subject to the conditions noted on the slide, which are registration of a number of covenants, one for protection from flood hazard, one for the protection of wildfire hazard, a no gas covenant, as well as a registration of a housing agreement covenant on title to secure those 2 units as affordable rental housing in perpetuity. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. And this development permit with variances, the public will have opportunity to make a comment, but first we're going to go to council, see if there's any questions before I launch into the spiel to support the public participation. Council, questions at this time? Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
This is perhaps more of a procedural question than a question directly related to this. I hope it's going to help me inform my understanding of our processes and the processes. So setbacks would normally be defined in a rezoning. And this property did come for rezoning recently for this project. And now they're applying for a variance to the zoning that we applied. So did their plans change, or is this a normal course of operations for somebody to apply for a rezoning with a particular set of setbacks and then come back and request a variance to the zoning that they requested?
Through the mayor, ideally you get it 100% right at the rezoning. However, the level of design obviously progresses from a rezoning stage to the development permit stage, particularly given the constraints on the site with the hydro right-of-way and kind of the tight actual development area and the tight drive aisle. When the architects refined the drawings further, they recognized that they needed this minor variance on the second and third story.
And was I appreciate that the waste rooms moved here. Was that part of the driver for this, or is it just one of the many factors for the sort of journey of discovery to figure out what, getting down to the fine details?
I would say it was one of the many drivers getting down to the fine details.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Another procedural question. I have questions around the housing agreement, which is later in the agenda, but it's a component of the motion in front of us. So I'm just curious if you want questions on that now or later.
I will leave that up to the chair.
We do have a particular space for that. Are your questions there? Do you feel that they're going to form your decision on the development permit, or is it the acceptance of the housing agreement? I was trying to parse this apart if we needed.
One of my questions might be relevant to the development permit with variance.
Okay. let's ask that one, and we'll leave the others for their specific space.
I guess I'm curious when we would secure the rental rate for the 2 affordable units that are being provided. So the housing agreement has some sample calculations on what the rents might be, but they're based on couple families, not lone parent families. And I'm just curious when we would actually secure the rental rates for those apartments. Or
Through
sorry,
the mayor, that would be when those they are tenanted and they're signing the lease agreements for those units. So whenever they receive occupancy and are being rented out.
But we wouldn't articulate the expectation of
So we have no
what's there.
control. Yeah. We have no control whether that's a lone parent family or a couple family.
That's correct. To secure that, that would have required securing that through the rezoning process. These units were offered, the CAC package for this rezoning exceeded the policy at the time. And there was no requirement specifically to provide affordable rental units. That was sort of over and above the CAC policy of the day.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Stone, or are you okay for right now? Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I have a bit of a script to read as we move into the public participation portion of this process. So the proponent and members of the public will be given the opportunity to be heard with respect to council's consideration of development permit number DP 000621 with variances. The proposed variances to the District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200/2017 are outlined in the development permit included as part of the agenda and available on the district's website. Members of the public are reminded that you may only speak to the proposed variances, which in this case relates to the front setback being varied from 6 meters to 5.09 meters for the second and third stories of the units fronting Raven Drive. We're trying to make this a safe place for everyone to voice their opinion without interference from others. Therefore, I ask that members of the public maintain order and quiet during the process. Please do not applaud or interrupt any speech or action of members of council or any other person addressing council. All speakers will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to address council. For all speakers, please start your remarks by clearly stating your name and neighborhood. As is our process, we save a first opportunity to speak to a member of the, an official from the Squamish Nation. And as we don't have any present with us here today, we'll move on to the applicant. If the applicant is here and would like to speak, this is their opportunity to do so. Seeing none, I'll move on to the public. So next I'll call on any members of the public that wish to speak. And again, each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to address council. I'll first call for speakers participating in person, and then please raise your hand and wait to be recognized and approach the podium. If you're participating online, instructions are available on the District of Squamish website, and there's a moderator that will communicate with people participating online. So is there anyone here that would like to speak to the variance requested here? Seeing none, I'm going to look to our online moderator. I'm getting a negative there. So this will be my final call for speakers. At this time, the time for public submissions is now closed. I'll ask council if there are any further information that the planning department might provide in response to any any comments or questions raised by members of the public, which we didn't get, but if anything, if there are any further questions before we consider issuance of the permit. Don't see any hands. So we have the staff recommendation before us. Are you moving the staff recommendation? So Councillor French moves the staff recommendation. Councillor Hamilton seconds. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor French?
Yes, please. This particular development has a pretty unique and exciting component in it with the agricultural portion of the property. I have supported that all through our various processes to get us to this point, and don't have any significant concerns with the variance that's being sought tonight or any of the other details that are before us.
Thank you. Other comments? Yep, go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks. Been debating with this one a little bit. I did approve the rezoning, and this is a property where I still have concerns about the proximity of the pipeline. I'm still after understanding that risk, and so I've wrestled with, I guess, theoretically the variance piece possibly gives me some leverage to try and deal with that. But given my prior support and the nature of the variance and so on, here I'm going to support this. But I just want to flag that I think this is, for me, still a concern. But all things considered, I will be supporting this DP.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pettingill. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, through the chair. I will support the motion on the floor, and thanks to my colleagues and staff for entertaining my question that was likely out of order because it was not relevant to the specific variance at hand. Speaking to the specific variance that is requested, I do think that this is a reasonable request. As staff mentioned, we tried to get it right the first time around, but zoning and rezonings are still fairly high-level drawings, and when we get down into the details to the final design, I think it's important to have a little bit of flexibility here to make sure that we are delivering the best form of units on site. And so hopefully these make them a little bit more livable, and we'll address the issues with the housing agreement at a later point in this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Greenlaw.
Thanks. Through the chair, I won't be supporting the motion on the floor. I'll echo the concerns of Councillor Pettingill, the comments about the pipeline. I'm also not really a fan of the aesthetics of this project. I was recently in Ontario visiting the suburbs, and this is what they look like. It's pretty uninspired. And I'll also point out that 25 meters squared for an agricultural plot is 260 square feet, which is smaller than this room. So anyways, I think we can do better. And I think given the fact that we've met our thresholds for our housing needs assessment, I think we should start demanding better from developers.
Thank you. I'll be speaking in support of the motion. I think this falls into sort of two pieces. One is, does it meet the requirements of our development permit area? And it clearly does that. And on the variance, I think this is totally appropriate. I think this is fronting Raven Drive, and the setback that remains is still quite healthy. And I think about that, just what that streetscape will look like, and I actually think being a little bit closer is better than being further set back, as far as an engaged community and an active, what will be an active area. So so I'm supportive of that, and particularly that with the result of the as part of this, that waste room is moved, which I know was a concern for the neighborhood in its previous location. So I'll be supporting the motion. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? Councillor Greenlaw opposes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. So Council, we're moving on now to item 6, which is our consent agenda. Is there anyone who'd like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would welcome moving the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Pettingill. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So next we have the housing agreement. Mr. Daly. So this is 7A1.
I do not have an additional presentation for this item, but staff are recommending 3 readings of the housing agreement associated with this development permit application that was previously presented.
Okay, thank you. Questions on the housing agreement itself? Councillor Stoner, go ahead.
Hi, me again. I appreciate the previous responses. I think that addresses some of my concern. I am still curious, though, in the example or in the agreement that's presented before us, there's an example for a 3-bedroom rent calculation, but there are no 3 bedrooms being secured in this agreement. So I'm just curious why we would include that. And then subsequent to that, given your previous response, why wouldn't we include a draft calculation for what the rent would be for a lone parent family if that is still a possibility? So I appreciate we can't secure it at this point, given where the rezoning conversations are. But my concern is that we're kind of setting ourselves up for a false expectation if we've included the rents for the 3-bedroom and no rent calculation for a lone parent family.
Through the mayor. So the rent calculation is more informative and meant to just show examples of how the rents are calculated. The 2 and 3 bedroom were just typically the unit types that you would see through a town or for a townhouse proposal. So both were just left there. For the apartment ones, typically we just would leave 1, 2, and 3 bedroom because those are often units that are provided. So it's meant to guide, and typically we don't see the lone parent calculation for the 3-bedroom units. So that's why it wasn't included. The template was just modified to show the rent calculation on the typical unit types that you'd see for that form of housing. So that's why the unit is there, even though there's no 3-bedroom units.
I want to push a little bit more on the lone parent family household. So there is still an opportunity that it's I'll admit that it's a low probability that is who gets access to this now that we haven't secured it as such. But even just having it in the agreement feels like it at least sets a tone. I don't know if that is just a little bit unrealistic of me, but it feels like it's a missed opportunity to not even articulate that might be a possibility.
Through the mayor, that is a fair comment. Ultimately, when it's going to be tenanted, I believe they work with the Housing Society on finding those tenants. So that the calculation, these rent calculations are kind of as an example to help inform the future folks looking at this. But I suppose it would, it is, as you noted, it is quite unlikely that would be rented to a lone parent, unfortunately, given the scale of this development. That would require like quite a low rent, and even providing these 2 units secured as affordable rental housing on a project this size is quite challenging financially for the developers to do. But I see your point. Staff would still recommend proceeding with this housing agreement as proposed to continue moving it forward, but that's certainly a valid comment that can be noted for future housing agreements coming forward to council.
On this point, is this something that, like, how much of it is, this strikes me as a little bit, this agreement strikes me as outside of the template that we use for affordable housing, or is this that? And
This
then
is the template.
This is the template. Okay, so then perhaps it's an adjustment to the template to reflect for that affordable housing units under 1.1A just going forward. Maybe this is an area to flush out a bit further to address that piece. Now, whether that's appropriate in using a template in this way is maybe a discussion for a different day, but I think that's where we could refine this a little bit further to address those concerns. And then, yeah, so that's more just a bit of feedback. I don't have a question there. Council, we have a recommendation before us. I don't have anyone else on my speakers list. Are we ready to move this? I'm going to move it, and I'll see if there's a seconder. Seconded by Councillor French. Thank you. I think I do think that as we've just had a discussion around room for improvement or refinement of our process and our templates, I'm quite happy that we're having a discussion about affordable housing on this site, and securing it this way is totally appropriate. And in the overall context of the rezoning process, the development permit we just dealt with, this project has exceeded our policy in various areas, including this one. So although I recognize the concerns raised by my one of my council colleagues around the single parent piece and so on. I do think, given the context of this, I don't think that's enough to hold up this particular step of the process for me. So I'll be supporting it. I'll go to Councillor Stoner next.
Thank you, through the chair, and appreciate staff responding to my questions and my areas of concern. I will support the motion on the floor. As staff mentioned, the delivery of affordable housing units in this particular project goes above and beyond what our CAC policy is. And so I do think it's still appropriate to support where we're at. But this, for my council colleagues to understand, is one of the examples that we're starting to see really challenging in our perpetually affordable housing policy and the way that we've structured it. It's missing an equity lens in terms of who actually gets access to the units that are being delivered, and actually unintentionally, I think, and we just didn't really know it at the time, means that these are hard to deliver already, but it means that the highest bidder is going to get access to them. And usually those are couples, not necessarily the folks who really, really need them at the end of the day, the lone parent families, single individuals. And so this is why I think updating our perpetually affordable housing policy is really important, because we're starting to see these lessons learned come forward in terms of the gaps that we perhaps unintentionally created with the initial version of our PAH. So I will support this because I think it's all housing, and especially all affordable housing is good housing. But I do think that we can elevate and do better going forward. And I look forward to the opportunity to address our policy gaps there. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you very much, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks. I will support this given what was secured at the rezoning. I will note that in section 2.4H, it says all tenants must be selected and placed in a residential unit appropriate to their household size as determined by BC Housing or CMHC from time to time. I read that in my mind as, given it's their policies, as inclusive of income, and maybe that's my misunderstanding or something where we want to push back. In either case, I do agree that going forward, we may need to refine this or tighten it up or clarify the language. It is a bit of it is not fully consistent with my understanding that these were going to the highest bidder below the maximum. And if that is the way these are being interpreted, that is something that I definitely think going forward we need to be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Councillor Greenlaw opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. So we don't have item 7B1 as expected. We've adopted the amended agenda to reflect that. So now we're on to adoption. This section, we need to do the first piece individually by itself, and then the solid waste and utility bylaws can be done together. So the first one is the District of Squamish zoning bylaw 2200-2011 amendment bylaw, and this is the RM density bonus, and this is number 3107-2024. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Sorry, yeah. And any comments on these? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So next we have the solid waste utility bylaws, which can be done together unless we need to contemplate them separately, but don't feel the need to. Councillor Hamilton moves. Councillor Anderson seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We don't have anything under item 8. Under item 9 is the late agenda items. And we've got a motion to cancel the February 4th, 2025 regular business meeting. And I just wondered if someone was prepared to speak to it briefly. We don't have a presentation, but some context for council and anyone watching.
Hi, Melissa Bumbluto, Director of Corporate Administration. We suggested this recommendation to Council as we don't have any significant items scheduled for the agenda for February 4th. And in the interest of preserving council's very valuable time, we thought it would be best to bump the items that are currently scheduled, which were mostly adoptions of bylaws that are not urgent, to the February 18th meeting to allow everybody a extra evening.
Thank you. And there will be some work to do during the day. It's just the regular business meeting that is what's being canceled here. So I'll move that council cancel February 4th, 2025 regular business meeting. Second by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We didn't have anything under item 10 or 11, 12. Any notice of motion, council? Seeing none. Open question period, clarification related to agenda items. Is there anyone that has any questions about what we've done here today? Seeing none. Council or staff announcements? Anyone have anything they'd like to share? I'm looking at Councillor French because usually it's been a quiet time. 1 second, I just got to pull up my my notes here. I have a couple things since we last met. I think the biggest thing is on the Friday the 10th, I was invited to attend the Barangay Sea to Sky Filipino Society's first event. And this was held in Whistler. And I accepted the invitation as soon as I saw it, but I had no idea what the size or how refined it would be, given it was an inaugural event. I was blown away by the organization that these folks showed, and were so generous in sharing their food culture time. And it was great to see the Filipino culture sort of on full display. And we know that the Sea to Sky and Squamish really, I think, is a great representation of what the mosaic that we hear about in making up Canada, and it was really on full display on that night. So just look out for more events. This is the first one, and the organizers were so keen to get going. It was a 10-day turnaround time, and there was 150 people there, and it was well executed. I would never know that it only happened in 10 days. So I'm quite excited to see what's next for them. And I know that they're quite excited to share that with share their culture traditions with the community and with council. So I'm going to foreshadow that there's likely an invitation coming for something else, and I would really recommend that you, if possible, you can find a way to attend. I think that's probably the biggest. Yeah, I think I'll leave it. I'll leave it there. So, any other announcements at all? Oh, yeah, Councillor Stoner, go ahead.
That was Seamus getting my computer.
Does Seamus want to say anything? No. Okay. So we don't have a motion to close. We don't have any. Sorry. No, we have an in-camera announcement that's showing on the agenda there, and that's all we need to do with that. So we're looking for termination, which Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Stoner / full team effort. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.